Okay, so a little bit about the text, but before we start on the text, I want to express some appreciation for having the opportunity to share the Dharma with you here in the next few nights. And so I want to thank the people at Taipei Buddhist Center for helping to coordinate the talks, and especially Venerable Fat Kwan, the late Venerable Fat Kwan. When I first came to Singapore in 1987, I stayed at her temple just up the road on, what was the name of can't remember the name of the street, but I stayed there for some time. And she was an incredible role model for me, because she had really dedicated her life to benefiting living beings, and especially to spreading Buddhism here in Singapore. And she did quite a number of magnificent projects, such as having the old folks home and building this whole Buddhist center so that many people could enjoy the Dharma and learn and practice. And I also want to thank the people from Pureland Marketing for helping to organize the talks and for taping it, and also the people from Friends of Sravasti Abbey, Singapore, who ran around and worked very hard and are nearing collapse out of fatigue, so all these people worked very hard to make these evenings of sharing the Dharma together possible. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this text, A Guide to a Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Like I said, it was written in the 8th century. Well, actually, it was spoken in the 8th century by Shantideva, a great Indian sage. And I want to tell you the story about Shantideva because I really like it, and it has some special meaning. So Shantideva was a monk in one of the great monasteries in India, and he was not very popular, although he was renowned. And he was renowned as the monk who did 3 things. What were those 3 things? He ate, he slept, and he went to the bathroom. Okay, so the other monks just saw him eating, sleeping, and going to the bathroom, and ridiculed him and said, "What kind of monk are you? You aren't keeping your vows well," And they wanted to somehow humiliate him so that he would leave the monastery. So they asked him to give a special teaching, and they made the throne, the Dharma seat for this special teaching, very, very high, but they didn't put any steps to go up to it, thinking that he would be very humiliated not being able to get on the Dharma seat. Well, Shantideva walked up there, and he put his hand on the Dharma seat and brought it down and sat on it, and then the seat went back up. And then he proceeded to teach this text. And the 9th chapter of this text is about the nature of reality, the emptiness of inherent existence. And so it's said, because this is a very, very profound topic, that as he was speaking it, he rose up in space and disappeared so that only his voice could be heard giving the teaching. So instead of Shantideva being the one who was humiliated, it was actually the monks who had arranged this situation who were humiliated, seeing that Shantideva was actually a great bodhisattva, but they had turned and criticized him because they were unable to see his hidden qualities and only saw him eating, sleeping, and going to the bathroom. Okay? So for me, that's always, this story is always a good lesson about be careful who you criticize, because you don't really know who they are. Yeah, don't you think? When we criticize people, we think we know everything about them. Yeah. You know, if you have a colleague you don't like or a neighbor you don't like, we point the finger, oh, that person's so stupid, la. You know, such an idiot. What do they think they're doing? You know, and we criticize and blame them. Yeah, but do we really know who that person is? Do we really know if they're a realized being or an ordinary being? We don't, do we? Yeah. Do we even know their motivation for doing what they're doing? The activity that we think is so reprehensible. Do we even know their motivation for doing it? Or are we just projecting a motivation on them? Okay, so when we stop to look closely, we see that, you know, we think that we're pretty sure we know who people are, but we really can't be so sure because we don't have the clairvoyant powers to know their mind. We only know their outside appearance. And as we know, outside appearances can be very, very deceptive. Because sometimes people look really good and they turn out to be quite unethical. And sometimes people like Shantideva seems to be nobody special, but actually they're a great sage. Right? So, you know, we need to be a little bit more cautious about who we point the finger at and maybe doubt some of the opinions that we hold about others. Because sometimes we hold pretty strong opinions about others. Yeah. And we don't even realize their opinions. We think they are the truth. Yeah. So when we don't like somebody, that person is bad, inherently evil, corrupt. They don't have one good quality about them. Okay. But when we like somebody, wonderful. Yeah. No fault at all. They're perfect. But if we look in our own experience, for how long do we see somebody as perfect? A month, a year. Then what happens? Reality sets in. Okay? And we start seeing the real person in all their facets, their good qualities, their faults. Whereas at the beginning, we may have only seen good qualities and ignored the faults. Or sometimes we only see bad qualities and ignore the good qualities. Okay? So it's much better if we try and form a whole idea of people instead of latching onto very simplistic opinions of them. Because these simplistic opinions are often quite erroneous, and if we live our life by them, we wind up in a mess very often. And also, you know, we can spend a lot of time having opinions about other people. Sometimes I look at my own mind and I see it's kind of like an opinion factory. Yeah, you need an opinion, just ask me, I'll give you an opinion about anything. Whether I know what I'm talking about or not, I'm happy to give you an opinion. Okay. But how much are my opinions worth? And so if I live my life according to my own opinions, never questioning them, then there's going to be some difficulties. And especially if I really get wrapped up in all my opinions and my opinion factory. Yeah, oh, this person's like this, that person's like that, this situation we should do this, that situation we should do that, blah, 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 all my opinions about everything. Yeah, and when do I ever really live? When do I ever really connect with another living being? Because I'm too busy forming opinions about them to actually connect with them. So that becomes a problem. So it's good if we try and let our opinions go and not get attached to them, not hold on to them. One thing or a few things we do know about all living beings, at least the ones that are not Buddhas, or the ones that have not realized the nature of reality, is that they are cycling in this round of constantly recurring problems that is known as cyclic existence or samsara. Yeah. And why are they cycling? Why are we cycling? Because of our ignorance, and our ignorance that produces attachment and resentment and jealousy and arrogance. So we all have these disturbing emotions. We all have all sorts of wrong conceptions and wrong views. And these things afflict our mind, make us do actions or karma, and then the karma ripens and influences where we get born and what we experience in our life. So whenever we look at any living being, any sentient being, we know this is their situation. Okay? So that's knowing something very important about others. Yeah? What does that mean? It means that people don't have free minds. Their minds are under the control, us included, our minds are under the control of ignorance, anger, and attachment. Yeah. With a mind under the control of ignorance, anger, and attachment, are we going to behave perfectly? No way. Okay. So if other sentient beings have minds like ours that are under the control of ignorance, anger, and attachment, should we expect them to behave perfectly? No. Okay. If we expect them to behave perfectly, what's going to happen? We're going to be pretty disappointed, aren't we? But if we realize that they aren't perfect living beings, then we don't expect them to do everything perfect. And also, we have compassion for them. Compassion being the wish for them to be free of their suffering, the suffering that comes about due to their ignorance, anger, and attachment. Okay. If we expect everybody to be perfect, then we approach living beings with a very critical, judgmental mind, always looking for what they're doing wrong. If we assume that sentient beings are imperfect, then we approach them with compassion, wanting them to be free of suffering, and with love, wanting them to be happy. Which approach is going to serve you better in your life? Yeah, think about it. The second one is, isn't it? Okay. So we need to keep reminding ourselves of the reality of the situation. People aren't perfect. We aren't perfect. Yeah. So let's not, try and pretend to be perfect, and let's not judge ourselves for others for being imperfect. Okay. We can accept our present state of imperfection and at the same time try and practice the Buddha's teachings and improve the state of our mind so that we can gradually reduce these imperfections, these taints, these faults, and gradually increase all of our inner beauty and all of our good qualities until we become fully enlightened Buddhas. So if we live our life from that perspective, we're going to be a lot happier, and we're also going to have better relationships with other people, because our mind is much more realistic. Okay? So, let me take out my glasses first. I want to give you a review of the first few chapters. So the first chapter is called The Benefit of the Spirit of Awakening. Whenever in this text they're using the term Spirit of Awakening, that is the Sanskrit for that term is Bodhicitta. And other translators translate it as altruistic intention, which I prefer as an English translation. And sometimes I just say bodhicitta. Bodhi means enlightenment or awakening, and citta means mind. Okay, so the mind that seeks full enlightenment, the mind that seeks to be fully awakened. Why? Because we want not only to be happy ourselves, to free our own minds from suffering, but because we want to be of the greatest benefit to all living beings. So the first chapter talks about the benefits of generating this very precious mind of enlightenment. Okay? And how with this mind of enlightenment, our own heart becomes very joyful and very peaceful, and our life becomes extremely meaningful. Okay? Why does our life become meaningful? Because we're living it for the benefit of all beings, and we're living it to, when we talk about the benefit of all beings, we're talking about not just giving people food and shelter and so on in this life, which is important, but actually being able to benefit them by leading them on the path to full enlightenment, where they're free of the tainted karma and free of the mental afflictions such as ignorance, anger, and attachment. Okay? So really benefiting sentient beings is a very long-term project. It goes way beyond this life, and it goes way beyond us as one living being. Okay, so this spirit of enlightenment, this bodhicitta, this altruistic intention, is a very, very expansive view and motivation on the world, and it's quite different than our present motivation and view. Okay, because if we look and ask ourselves, what is my present motivation? Okay, why do I do most of the things I do in life? Okay, now think about it for a minute. Why do you do the things you do in your life? The overall intention is we want happiness, isn't it? Everybody just wants to be happy and free of suffering. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. We all want to be happy and free of suffering. The way we go about seeking happiness, however, is mistaken, because our mind is seeking happiness only for ourselves. and our mind is seeking the happiness that comes from sense pleasure that lasts for only a finger snap, very, very shortly. Yeah, very brief moments of happiness. So the present outlook we have, every day, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about my happiness now. Isn't that our theme song? Yeah, my happiness now. I want my happiness now, not later, now. And I want my happiness, not your happiness, because I'm more important than anybody else. Right or not right? Oh, you all agree I'm more important than anybody else? Oh, that's good. No, but the problem is, you see, we're all thinking I'm more important than everybody else. We're all going around thinking that, aren't we? Yeah. And what's our reason? Why are we more happy? Why is our happiness more important than anybody else's happiness? What's the reason? Because I'm me. What kind of reason is that? Yeah, because I'm me. Well, everybody thinks because I'm me. So does that make my happiness more important than everybody else's? No. And when we're seeking happiness, sense pleasure happiness, how long does that last? We have a nice meal and the pleasure's over. We have a good sleep and we aren't even awake to enjoy it. So we have so much pleasure, but it disappears very quickly and we don't really experience it. And in the process of seeking all of this immediate pleasure, we create a lot of negative actions. We talk behind other people's back, we gossip, we criticize people, we are dishonest, we lie, we take things that haven't been given to us. Okay? We do all sorts of kind of nasty things in an attempt to be happy. And it kind of backfires, because sometimes we succeed in getting the happiness, but along with it we create a ton of negative karma that then obscures our mind and serves as the causes for future suffering. And in addition, this mind that thinks my happiness now, this mind that thinks I want what I want when I want it, creates a lot of problems in our life with other people, doesn't it? Because we go through life, I want what I want when I want it. And the universe is supposed to deliver to me and give me what I want when I want it. Does that happen? Does that happen in your life? Do you get what you want when you want it? We're all trying hard to get what we want when we want it, and we don't succeed. So we're so frustrated, we're anxious, we're disappointed, we're disillusioned. Yeah? And then, because we don't get what we want when we want it, we get mad at everybody and everything. Yeah? And feel that the universe doesn't treat us properly because we are entitled to have everything we want. Why? Because I'm me. Pretty dumb, but that's how we live. Isn't it? Isn't it? I mean, we're in good company. We can admit it. Yeah. We don't have to pretend that we're some kind of holy beings. Yeah. Because you know what? Everybody else knows we have faults. We don't see our own faults, but you know what? Everybody else does. And so the more we go through our life denying our faults, the more stupid we look, because other people see all of our faults. Don't they? Our faults are on public display, even though we try so hard to hide them. So we don't have to, feel embarrassed or feel shy or feel ashamed. Just accept it. It's there. Yeah, that's the way it is. Yeah. But our choice is, do we want to continue to have those faults, or do we want to do something about them? Okay. And doing something about our faults is very different than denying that we have them. Because denying we have faults is like me going, I don't have a nose. Okay? If I go like this and say I don't have a nose, do you believe me? I have a big nose. Everybody knows I have a big nose. Me saying I don't have a nose doesn't work. Okay? So it's better to say I have a big nose. Then what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to breathe, actually. Okay? So this altruistic intention, this bodhicitta, is a major shift in direction in our life, because instead of just looking for my happiness now and feeling that we're entitled to have everything that we want, we become more humble. We see that there's a countless number of sentient beings who all want to be happy as intensely as we do, who all want to be free of suffering as intensely as we do. And we begin to open our heart and have love and compassion for others. When our minds have love and compassion for others, our own heart is more peaceful. When our mind spends its time judging others and criticizing others and putting others down, our own heart is in a lot of turmoil and restlessness. Okay, so the benefit, this first chapter talks about the benefit of generating the altruistic intention, and how much freer and happier and joyful we feel in this life if we have the loving, compassionate thought for enlightenment. And so that encourages us to generate it, because we see the benefits this life. We see how much it helps us purify negative karma. We see the great benefit that this altruistic intention has for society at large and for all living beings throughout the universe. Because if we're able to act motivated by this intention to become a Buddha, to work for the welfare of living beings, then everything we do becomes very meaningful, and we're actually able to affect a lot of change and a lot of benefit to the sentient beings around us. And we're also able to progress rapidly on the path to enlightenment. Okay, so that's the first chapter. The second chapter is the confession of negativities. Okay, so after talking about the benefit of generating bodhicitta, Shantideva talks about how to get rid of the impediments to generating bodhicitta. And what are the greatest impediments we have? Our own negativities. So these negativities include disturbing emotions and wrong views. They include the non-virtuous or unwholesome actions that we've done, also known as negative karma or destructive karma, destructive actions. And so how to confess these mistaken actions and purify them so that we can put them down and they no longer affect our life and obscure our mind. Because the more we're able to purify these negativities, the easier it's going to be to generate this altruistic intention. The third chapter is called Adopting the Altruistic Intention. And so this chapter talks about generating the altruistic intention and taking the Bodhisattva vow. A Bodhisattva being somebody who has this altruistic intention to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. And that being takes the Bodhisattva vow, which consists of a certain number of precepts, and then they practice those precepts and practice the Bodhisattva's trainings. And so it was on that note that we finished the teachings last year. So I want to go to the very end of chapter 3 and read a few verses for you. So Shantideva had some very beautiful verses here. He says, may those who falsely accuse me, who harm me, and who ridicule me, all partake of enlightenment. Yeah. We usually say, may everybody who accuses me, harms me, and ridicules me go to hell. Shantideva says the exact opposite. May they partake of enlightenment. May they become Buddhas. Okay. May I be a protector for those who are without protectors, a guide for travelers, and a boat, a bridge, and a ship for those who wish to cross over. Isn't that a nice thought? You know, may I become what others need. May I be a lamp for those who seek light, a bed for those who seek rest, and may I be a servant for all beings who desire a servant. Okay, so really dedicating one's life for the benefit of others. To all sentient beings, may I be a wish-fulfilling gem, a vase of good fortune, an efficacious mantra, a great medication, a wish-fulfilling tree, and a wish-granting cow. So the tree and the cow and the gem are all ancient Indian symbols. Just as the earth and other elements are used in various ways to innumerable sentient beings dwelling throughout infinite space, so may I be in various ways a source of life for the sentient beings present throughout space until they are all liberated. Isn't that a beautiful thought? You know, that may I be just there and the source of life, the source of inspiration for each and every living being, no matter what situation they're in, no matter what circumstance they face. May somehow I be there to alleviate their pain and to bring them happiness. Yeah. Imagine living your life with that kind of motivation. Wouldn't that be beautiful? Yeah. If without any fear, okay, no fear, no hesitancy, no worry about what's going to happen to me, we just dedicate our life energy to being a benefit to others. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I mean, imagine being that kind of person. Yeah, that kind of person has no fear, no anxiety, no depression, no worry, no anger, Sounds good, doesn't it? Okay. So what is this path that leads us away from these disturbing emotions? It's the path of love and compassion and wisdom. Hmm? And then the Bodhisattva vow says, just as the Sugatas, the Buddhas of old, adopted the bodhicitta, and just as they properly conformed to the practice of the Bodhisattvas, so I myself shall generate the bodhicitta for the sake of the world, and so I myself shall properly engage in these practices. Okay, so taking the really firm vow and commitment that I'm going to follow this bodhisattva path, I'm going to follow the bodhisattva practices and train my mind no matter how long it takes me to become a fully enlightened Buddha. Okay, and so when we do this, then we have a very firm, long-term purpose and reason for this life and all of our future lives. And then the purpose of our life isn't just my happiness now and how can I be famous, how can I get a better job, how can I have a good relationship, how can I, have a comfortable bed to sleep on. But instead, the purpose of our life is, may I practice the Buddha's teachings, free myself of ignorance, anger, and attachment. May I develop my love and compassion fully so that I may become somebody who can really be of the utmost benefit to all living beings. And that's the purpose of this life. That's the purpose of all my future lives, and that's where I'm going. Okay? And so when you have that kind of strong altruistic intention, the life becomes very meaningful because everything you do has the motivation of the welfare of all living beings. So everything becomes very efficacious. Yeah, they say even a bodhisattva breathing becomes virtuous because their motivation is to be of benefit to all living beings. And then by transforming the mind and working hard at the Dharma practice, we will gain so many other extraordinary abilities that will allow us to be of very direct benefit to others. Okay. Now you might say, well, what happens if I don't want to be a bodhisattva? What happens if I don't want to attain enlightenment? Well, what's the alternative? What else are you going to do? You can stay in samsara and continue taking one rebirth after the other. Does that sound like fun? You want to keep getting born, getting old, getting sick, and dying? Yeah, we've been doing that from beginningless time. Do we want to continue doing that? Yeah. If we don't become enlightened, what else are we going to do? Well, we can keep our opinion factory working 24/7. Yeah, is that going to make us happy? Spewing out opinions? There may be a recession in the economy, but the opinion factory goes on strong. No recession in the opinion factory. It's always overproducing. It meets more than the quota. Okay, do we want to go on doing that? I mean, if we don't transform our own mind, that's the alternative, is just to keep doing the same silly, foolish, self-centered things we've been doing since beginningless time, and that doesn't really get us anywhere. Okay, so attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings may seem very far off. It may seem like something quite, like how somebody like little old me gonna do it. But if we work hard and put time and energy and have diligence in it, then eventually we'll attain full enlightenment. Okay? So it's just a process of creating the causes. We don't have to be born as a special person. We just have to create the causes. And if we create the causes for enlightenment, enlightenment comes. It's just a process of cause and effect. Okay, so having generated that intention, having taken the Bodhisattva vow and really promised to sentient beings that we want to become Buddhas to benefit them, then we have to really work hard to protect that altruistic intention. Why? Because our self-centered mind is very strong, and we haven't completely freed ourselves from it. And when our self-centered mind, rears its ugly head, it completely takes things over and runs the show. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, how you might start out with a good intention, and then the self-centered mind comes in and completely, ruins the whole thing? Just to give you a simple example, I had a situation not too long ago, unfortunately, where a friend of mine needed a jacket. And so I had a jacket, and I thought, I'll give my friend a jacket. She needs it. I don't need it. I have another one that I can wear. I like this jacket, but the other one I have is just as good. So I'll give my friend my jacket. So I had her try it on because we weren't sure if it would fit. And as she was trying it on, it almost looked like it would fit her. And all of a sudden my mind said, if it fits her, then I have to give it to her like I said. It's an excellent example of here you are trying to do something kind, and then that self-centered thought just comes up out of the blue and changes your kind action into, it just completely pushes your kind action out of the window and replaces it with a very self-centered thought. Okay? So we have to, as we're generating the bodhicitta, and even, the bodhisattvas after they've generated it, they have to be very attentive to their bodhicitta so that it doesn't decline or degenerate, until the self-centered thought is completely obliterated. Thank you. I was putting the L in the wrong place. Obliterated. Okay, so Shantideva starts this chapter. Okay, you can read along in the book if you want with me. Thus, upon firmly adopting the spirit of awakening, or the bodhicitta, a child of the jinas. The jina is a Sanskrit term that means the victors. So the victors refers to the Buddha, and a child of the Buddha refers to a bodhisattva. Okay? So a child of the jinas should always diligently strive not to neglect his training. So in other words, once we've generated bodhicitta, we should really be quite vigilant and not neglect the bodhisattva training. In other words, we shouldn't say, I worked so hard to generate bodhicitta. Now I think I'll have a nice long sleep. I'll sit in the hot tub. I'll go to the ice cream parlor. I'll do what makes me feel good because I finally, worked so hard to think of others. No. Okay, because if we start doing that, then all this energy we put in to create an altruistic intention is going to go by the wayside because the the self-centered thought is going to take over. So we have to be very, very vigilant about the self-centered thought. Verse 2, although one has made a commitment, it is appropriate to reconsider whether or not to do that which has been rashly undertaken and which has not been well considered. Okay, so this is talking about a regular situation in our life. Because sometimes we make a commitment, okay? We made it very quickly. We undertook it rashly. We didn't consider all the consequences very well. We didn't consider if we have the time to do what we promised, if we have the ability to do what we promised. It's just, there was something and we said, I'll do it, but we didn't think very clearly before we did it. So Shantideva is saying in that kind of situation, then it's suitable to reconsider our commitment because we didn't make our commitment with a lot of mental clarity or a lot of wisdom, and we may have bitten off more than we could chew. Okay? So this is a situation, for example, that might be at work, and the boss says, I need somebody to do this and such a project. And we think, oh, I'll do it because then I'll impress the boss, and then I'll work overtime and I'll get some more money, and then I'll be able to get a promotion. So we volunteer to do the project really quickly because we think of all these benefits that we're going to get personally from doing it. But then once we start doing the project, we realize that we don't really have the skills to do it. Yeah, that our skills are in another area, and the skills required for this project are things that we're not very strong in. Okay, so what happens in that kind of situation? We made a commitment very rashly, very quickly, without considering, and now our boss is counting on us, our colleagues are counting on us, and we realize that we can't do the job very well. Okay, what do? Well, what some people do is they fake it. And they don't admit that they overcommitted themselves. They pretend to do the job. And when the deadline comes and the job isn't done, then they blame somebody else for it not getting done. Now, we all know that we don't do that other people in the company do that, right? Yeah, because we're really nice people, aren't we? We don't do nasty things like that. Well, maybe a little bit we do it, huh? Yeah, can we admit to a little bit sometimes doing that? Okay, so we fake it, we cover up our own lack of experience, we blame the fault to somebody else. Okay. What would actually be a more responsible way of dealing with that situation? Wouldn't it be more responsible as soon as we realize that we don't have the skills to do the job, to go to our boss and say, I'm very sorry, I committed myself to that, I don't really have the skills, I feel that it's only honest and appropriate for me to tell you that now because I don't want the company to get to a position later on where you are counting on me and I can't come through for you. Okay? Now you might feel, how can I say that to my boss? How can I say that I can't do something? But it's the truth, isn't it? And doesn't that actually show more integrity on your part than faking it and lying and covering it up and blaming somebody else? And then at the end of the day, other people are depending on you to have the project done and you don't have it done. And it's really inconvenient and problematic for them. doesn't it really show more integrity on a person's part, you know, to realize and to say that at the beginning so that the boss and the other people can make other arrangements? You know, think about it. And I think about this kind of thing a lot because I work, as a nun, I work a lot with people who volunteer. And very often people volunteer because they say, oh, this sounds so good, I want to do it. And then they volunteer, and then you think they're going to do it, and time goes by, and then when you really need it, they haven't done it. And they haven't told you that they couldn't do it because they don't have time or because, you know, their child got sick or something else came up. And at the end of the day, you're left there needing something, but the person who said they were going to do it didn't tell you that they didn't have the time to do it. And I would just much rather in those kinds of situations that somebody tell me at the beginning, because then there's a chance to find somebody else who actually can do it, rather than to wait until the end and then have all these problems. Okay? So sure, from our part, sometimes we have to swallow our pride and admit that we committed ourselves without thinking adequately first. But I think in the end, it actually shows more integrity and responsibility on our own part. And I know for myself, if I were a boss, if I were an employer, I would look for employees with integrity, rather than people who present a good facade on the outside but can't come through when the rubber hits the road. Okay? So Shantideva is saying in those situations, you know, okay, if we bit off more than we can chew, rethink it. Yeah, tell the other person, clarify with the other person what you can't do, what you're unable to do, what you have the skills for, what you don't, what you have the time for, what you don't, you know, and just be honest and direct. And, you know, maybe help them find a replacement person to do the thing that you had committed to that you can't continue to do. Okay? So that's completely appropriate in that way. Yeah? Because we all have situations where that has happened, haven't we? Okay. But verse 3 says, "But shall I discard that which has been examined by the sagest Buddhas and their children, as well as by myself, according to the best of my abilities?" In other words, situations in which I rashly made a commitment, sure, reconsider those, readjust them. But here's a situation in which all the Buddhas have examined that having the bodhicitta intention and acting and doing the bodhisattva training is something good and something beneficial. And also, I myself have spent a lot of time examining the bodhisattva path, the bodhisattva training. I've thought about it. I've thought it's noble, it's wonderful, this is something I want to do, and I committed myself to do it. And all the Buddhas know that this is something beneficial to do. That kind of thing that I've committed myself to do, is it appropriate to then renegotiate? No, it's not, is it? Yeah, because we've thought about it. And with our wisdom mind, we've clearly decided this is beneficial. And the Buddhas have said it's beneficial. So what need is there to doubt our intention? What need is there to get lazy or frightened? Yeah, we should continue with this mind of bodhicitta, this mind that wants to become a fully enlightened Buddha for the benefit of all beings. Even if it's hard, even if it takes a long time, because we know in our heart of hearts how wonderful and meaningful and important it is. Okay? Verse 4, if upon making such a promise I do not put it into action, then I have deceived those sentient beings. What destiny shall I have? So if I've made a promise to help to become a Buddha, to benefit all living beings, and I don't put it into action, then I've essentially deceived all living beings. I've told them I was going to work for their benefit, and now I'm chickening out. So what kind of future rebirth am I going to have? If I've committed myself and deceived sentient beings, and then I chicken out, am I going to have a good rebirth? No. Okay. So once I've generated the bodhicitta, does ignoring it or giving it up help me? No. No. It actually harms me as well as harms others. It has been said that a person, this is verse 5, it has been said that a person who intended to give away even a tiny thing but does not do so becomes a preta. Okay, a preta is a hungry ghost. Yeah, so hungry ghosts are beings who suffer from great hunger, great thirst, and great frustration because they want things and they can't get what they want. Okay, so it's been said that if we've had the intention to give something away, and then we haven't done it, we've decided to keep it for ourselves after all, that doing that creates the cause in future lives to be reborn as a hungry ghost. Why? Because mentally we were generous and decided to give something, and afterwards we thought, oh no, I don't want the other person to have it, because if they have it, I won't have it, and I really need it, and I want it, so I'm going to keep it for myself. Okay, have you ever done that? Yeah, that was kind of like me with that jacket. Yeah. But at the end, it didn't really fit my friend, so. Okay, so we have to be careful here, because if we've decided to give something, and then all of a sudden our mind feels a sense of poverty and fear, oh, if I give it, I won't have it, I better keep it for myself, I'll keep it for myself, I won't give it, then actually we may keep the thing for ourselves, but we're creating the cause to be reborn as a hungry ghost. So is keeping it for ourselves beneficial? No. Okay. So actually, one of the Bodhisattva vows is, if somebody has given us an offering to give to the triple gem, if instead of giving it to the triple gem, we kind of keep it for ourselves, essentially that's stealing from the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Or if we keep that thing for ourselves and get a replacement and give it to the triple gem, that also is inappropriate. So let's say somebody gives me a package of cookies to offer on the altar. But on the way to driving to the temple, I feel hungry. And I say, I'm hungry. I'll eat those cookies, and then I'll get another bag of cookies to offer to the triple gem. No. No. Because that bag itself was mentally offered and needs to be delivered. Okay, so in all these kinds of things, because sometimes we very often think, and make a decision, I'll give something to somebody, and then at the end we go, no. Well, that actually is negative karma on our own part, okay? But of course, if we're only thinking about giving something and decide not to give it, that's not the case. But once we've decided to give it, then we should really follow through and do that. Yeah. And without a feeling of poverty, because whatever we give, it's not going to kill us, is it? And so often, whatever we give, we're going to forget about it the next day. It's not like we're going to miss it. Mm-hmm. Verse 6. Well, let's read verse 5 again and then follow into verse 6. It has been said that a person who intended to give away even a tiny thing but does not do so becomes a preta. Then all the more so, having deceived the entire world, after loudly and sincerely inviting it to unsurpassable happiness, what state of existence shall I have? So if I have generated bodhicitta, and I've loudly and sincerely, so I haven't done it boastfully or dishonestly, but sincerely, in the presence of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, in the presence of all the sentient beings I've imagined around me, I've decided that I'm going to dedicate my life to attaining enlightenment and to benefiting them. If then I change my mind, what kind of existence am I going to have? Considering that if I decide to give a small thing and change my mind about that, that creates the cause for to be born as a hungry ghost. Okay? So in proportion, promising to lead sentient beings to unsurpassable enlightenment, and then deciding not to do that, that's billions of times worse than thinking to give a small thing and not give it. Okay? Verse 7, only the omniscient one knows the inconceivable course of action of those people whom he liberates, even when they have forsaken the spirit of awakening. Okay, so there's a story, what this verse is referring to, is the story of Shariputra. Okay, so there's one story. Shariputra was one of the Buddha's foremost disciples, and he was really magnificent. Shariputra was quite wonderful. But at one point, it's said that he generated the bodhicitta. And then he encountered a non-Buddhist who was kind of being rather obnoxious, to tell you the truth. And this non-Buddhist wanted Shariputra's hand. Yeah, he wanted him to cut off his hand and give it to him. So, this story is a little bit far out, but don't let the details bother you. Let's think about the point of the story, okay? So this non-Buddhist asked Shariputra for his hand. So he cut off his hand. He cut off his right hand, and then with his left hand, he picked up the amputated hand and offered it to this other person. Now, in ancient India, your left hand was considered a dirty hand because they didn't have toilet paper, and your left hand was how you used the water to clean yourself after you went to the bathroom. So this non-Buddhist was very offended. How dare you offer me something with your left hand? How dare you? And so he took Shariputra's hand and threw it on the ground and stomped on it and walked off. Okay, and Shariputra thought, oh, these sentient beings are too much. I am not going to work for this guy's enlightenment ever. He is so ungrateful. Okay, at that moment, by leaving out this one sentient being from the field of his loving compassion, Shariputra lost his bodhicitta. Okay? But, as we all know, Shariputra still became a great arhat. How is that possible? This is something that we don't understand. And so that's why this verse is saying only the omniscient one, only the Buddha, knows the inconceivable course of karma of those people whom are able to get liberated, even though, like Shariputra, they gave up the bodhicitta. Okay, because Shariputra gave up the bodhicitta, so you would think normally he would have a very terrible rebirth, but instead he was able to become an arhat. So that's a very special, rare occasion, and only the Buddha understands the karma that can explain that. That's what that verse means. And then verse 8, therefore, for a bodhisattva, it is the heaviest downfall of all, for if he commits such a downfall, he impairs the welfare of all sentient beings. So it's saying that for a bodhisattva, to abandon the bodhicitta is the worst downfall that they could possibly have. It's worse than killing 1 million people, okay? Because with the bodhicitta, the bodhisattva has pledged to work for the benefit of all sentient beings from now infinitely. And so giving up that bodhicitta mind, that altruistic intention, becomes very detrimental for all the sentient beings. Okay? And so that's why giving that up is the severest of all of the downfalls, because it affects each and every sentient being, and because without the bodhicitta, then that bodhisattva, well, that person is no longer a bodhisattva, and without becoming a bodhisattva, you can't become a Buddha. So that person has therefore limited, at least temporarily, their own ability to become a Buddha by giving up the principal cause of Buddhahood, which is bodhicitta. And so that's why it's saying that at all costs, once we take the vow to work for the benefit of sentient beings, we should really protect it very, very carefully and make sure that we don't give it up in a fit of disappointment or betrayal or anger. Okay? Because it's very easy, you know. I mean, we've all had situations. Haven't you had a situation in which you've been kind to somebody else and they've repaid your kindness by doing something obnoxious or harmful or betraying your trust or cheating you? You had that situation? Yeah? I think it's a pretty common situation, unfortunately, where we do something kind and then somebody else, because of their own afflictions, because of their own ignorance, anger, and attachment, then they repay that kindness with something, you know, with bad behavior. And in those situations, it's very tempting for us to get extremely angry and just throw down the towel and say, I am never speaking to you again, may you go to hell, blah, blah, blah. We swear up and down and across, we trash them behind their back, we criticize them to their face, we never speak to them again because we're so angry and we feel so betrayed. Okay? That's what normal people do. Normal, foolish people do. Okay, so if you're normally foolish or foolishly normal, okay, that's what we do. But that's really foolish, isn't it? Yeah. And especially in something like this, if we've really pledged to benefit sentient beings, and we've already accepted that sentient beings are not perfect and they're going to be obnoxious sometimes. And then when they are obnoxious, we take it personally and say, forget you, get out of here. Then we're harming them and we're harming ourselves. Okay? So we have to take a lot of care about that. And even in normal situations when people betray our trust or repay our kindness with ingratitude, rather than get angry and upset, it's much better if we just think, sentient beings do sentient being things. Yeah. What is a sentient being thing? A mistake. I do mistakes, they do mistakes. I've repaid kindness with ingratitude, they're repaying my kindness with ingratitude. Haven't we sometimes repaid kindness with ingratitude? You're thinking, who, me? I would never do that. Really? I don't know about you, but for many years, yeah, my parents' kindness to me, I did not repay with gratitude. Yeah, I didn't repay my parents' kindness with gratitude. I wanted to do what I wanted to do and leave me alone, and and that's my parents, let alone my friends. Who knows what I've done to my friends? Yeah. Who knows what, and that's friends. What have I done to the people I don't like? Okay? So, if I look, I have to own that my behavior hasn't been always so exemplary in terms of repaying kindness with kindness. And often I've repaid kindness with ingratitude. So if I've done that, why am I so surprised when other people repay my kindness with ingratitude? Why am I so surprised? I've done the same thing. Okay? And so if I realize that, then I won't bother wasting my time getting mad at those people. But instead, I'll just accept it and say, this is a result of my own karma. It's a result of my own mistaken actions. No sense feeling hurt, no sense getting angry. Okay, so that's the first 8 verses that we've gone through. We'll continue tomorrow. I wanted to leave some time for some questions and comments. So please feel free. You can ask from the floor, or you can write it on a piece of paper as you wish. Questions? This is your chance, folks.
Yeah, if you want to ask any questions, you can use the mic over here, or if you need papers and pens, just raise your hands and we will pass it to you.
Can I? Karma. Since I started with Buddhism, the teachings of Buddhism, the teachings of yoga, and since karma became the concept of karma, I slowly started to understand. And due to that, I also started to take much more responsibility for what I do and for what I've done, or for what I've done without knowing and all that. But then, since I also understand that karma can come from so many lives before and lives before, I've watched myself for that as well, and I also have seen things in myself that the way I perceive them, that I really think it cannot be from this life. It is from somewhere else. But that I also find the most difficult part of maybe not even to take responsibility for, that becomes an abstract concept that I can do, but what can I do about it?
Okay. Okay, so you're saying that in learning about karma, you've learned to become more responsible for your deeds in this life, but then you know that there's deeds in previous life that you've done that you can't remember, and what can you do to become more responsible and to make some kind of reparation for those? So there's a teaching on purification that is, we always go through when we teach about karma. And it's called purification or confession with the 4 opponent powers. So I'll list the 4 and then I'll explain them. The first one is regret. Okay, regretting our negative actions. The second one is repairing the relationship. In other words, taking refuge in the holy beings and generating love and compassion for sentient beings. The third one is making the determination not to do the action again. And the fourth is doing some kind of remedial behavior. Sometimes these 4 are put in different orders, but regret always comes as the first one. Regret is different from guilt. Okay, guilt is antithetical to spiritual practice. So we're not encouraging you to become guilty. Guilt is something that you want to get rid of. But regret is a wisdom mind that is able to say, I made a mistake and I regret doing it because my mistake not only harms others, but it's harmed me. And I regret having done that. Okay. Then with regret, second, then we try and generate an attitude that is the complete opposite of the negative attitude, the negative motivation with which we did the harmful action. So we have 2 main objects when we do harmful actions. One is the holy beings, the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, our spiritual teachers. The second is sentient beings. So in terms of holy beings, when we have had a negative motivation towards them that's led to a destructive action, then to purify that, we take refuge. And we take refuge in the 3 jewels. And to purify the harmful motivations about ordinary sentient beings, we generate love and compassion and the altruistic intention. Then, third, we make a determination to avoid the action in the future. So if we can say, I'll never do it again, that's excellent. If we can't say, I'll never do it again, then at least having a certain period of time in which we try very hard not to do it again. Okay? And then fourth is to do some kind of remedial action. So these remedial actions can be reciting the names of the Buddha, reciting sutras, doing prostrations, making offerings, meditating. It can also include volunteering time in a temple or a Buddhist organization, doing volunteer work in the community, in some kind of social service function, giving donations for the poor and needy. Any kind of virtuous actions can become this remedial behavior. And so if we practice this diligently, then we can purify the karma from previous lives. Even if we can't remember the specific actions we did in previous lives, we can make a general confession, have general regret for any time at all in which we've done any of the 10 destructive actions. Okay, the 10 destructive actions being killing, stealing, unwise or unkind sexual behavior. Those are physical. Then 4 verbal ones, lying, creating disharmony, harsh speech, and idle talk. And then 3 mental ones, coveting, maliciousness, and wrong view. Okay, so we can make a general confession for all the times we've done those in our previous lives, even though we can't remember anything from previous life. Okay? Thank you. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to get through all these questions tonight, so I'll do a couple, and then we'll continue tomorrow too. Somebody said, "Are you an arhat?" No. That was a quick question. So I've already taken refuge under a Mahayana master. Can I take refuge again during the retreat this Saturday? And what is the consequence if I take refuge from different Buddhist masters? It's fine to take refuge as many times as you want to. When you take refuge, you're not taking refuge in a Buddhist tradition. You're not taking refuge in a specific master. You're taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the objects of refuge of all the different Buddhist traditions. So there's no problem at all. Okay, can you give some advice on how to handle people who are very cruel and I can't read the handwriting so well. Well, very cruel and, let's say, obnoxious. Okay? Or people who have no conscience. Yeah, so how do we work with people who have no conscience, people who are very cruel? First of all, you stay away from them. Yeah? Don't get involved with their activities, because if you get involved in their activities, they could influence you adversely. Now, in staying away from them, you don't leave them out of your compassion. You can still have compassion for them. And if you have the chance to give them some advice, if you have the chance in some kind of situation to explain ethical precepts and the value of living ethically to them, then do that. Okay? The creation of conflict appears to be an easy way to resolve problems. Do you think it works? What is the alternative? How does the creation of conflict resolve a problem? Conflict is an unresolved problem, isn't it? So creating a conflict doesn't resolve the problem. Okay. Maybe we misbehaved and that's the problem, but instead of owning up to our own misbehavior, we create a conflict with somebody else, trying to blame them or blah blah blah, something like that. So that clearly doesn't work, because we know that it's our own stuff, and they know it too. So why are we pretending? It's that old nose thing. I don't have a nose. I didn't do it. Come on. I think it's much better if we made a mistake, just say, I made a mistake, and then do what we can to rectify it and go on. It's really so much easier on ourselves and everybody else to just do that. Yeah. And we made a mistake, it's no big thing. It doesn't mean that we're awful, horrible people. We just made a mistake, we admit it, do what we can to fix it, and go on. Okay, so this person's saying, I would be so disappointed in the example that I gave if, with clarity of mind, I had not taken up the project given by my boss, and someone else is then though not capable, takes it up and causes inconvenience and frustration to others. Okay, so if I think what this person is saying is if they're competent and they didn't take up the project, and as a result somebody who wasn't competent took it up and caused problems to everybody else, then they would feel sad about that and disappointed. So that's true. That's fine. Yeah. Do something to help, and we, for whatever reason, didn't, and so somebody else who doesn't have the qualification takes it on, and doesn't turn out well. Is blaming oneself for one's own faults equally as bad as blaming others? Yes. Okay. Why? Because why do we need to blame either self or others? What good does blame do? Okay. There's a big difference between blame and taking responsibility. Big difference. Yeah. We need to take responsibility for our own actions, but that doesn't mean we blame ourselves when we make mistakes. And the remedy to blaming others isn't to blame ourselves. How about if we got rid of blame altogether? Because blame is not actually a very functional thing. Usually when blaming is involved, there's usually a mess. So it's better not to blame others, not to blame ourselves. In a situation, think clearly, what is my responsibility? What is the other person's responsibility? What are factors that are beyond my control? What are factors that are beyond the other person's control? And then of course we own up to our responsibility. But that doesn't mean that we blame ourselves for the whole situation, because part of it surely had to do with other people, and part of it had to do with factors that may have been beyond our own or anybody else's control. Okay, so no sense to blame. Okay, it's getting late, so I think we'll save the rest of the questions for tomorrow. I'll put them in the book. So you got to come tomorrow, I'm bribing you. So before we close tonight, let's just sit quietly for a moment and think about what you heard so that you can remember it and apply it in your life. So this will just be a very short meditation, and then we'll dedicate. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their suffering. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.